Grand wishes, powerful beings. I'm so excited to be back after centering in and reflecting. It has been a little bit of time, but sometimes you really need to take a second for yourself and recalibrate. I am excited to be telling you a story today about how I met God and the healing that transpired, which is another reason why it took some time to reflect on that. This is part one, as part two would be expressing the current mission that is in place. Before we get into that, let's get right into my new intro. Hope you like it. Okay, so at around the evening time of March 29th, my sister and I were in the kitchen cooking and talking and kikiing about, I don't even remember what we were speaking of, but I do know that at that moment it was already an integration of 5 altars that had taken place. And at that current moment, it was already myself, Juliana, by the way, this is Juliana. It was Juliana, Jaja, Juju, and Julie that had all integrated 2 days apart. And the last video, which I will post a link for, which it should be popping up right now, was about a little bit of how dissociative identity disorder comes about. And there's a few different reasons, there's a few different layers to dissociative identity disorder that I feel like a lot of people do not discuss. I feel like there's only one side to dissociative identity disorder that people focus on, and that is okay, because whatever your comfort level or awareness is what you will express. However, I would like to have this video be a testimony to how real God is and how spirituality and mental health really do go hand in hand. It's exciting and it's exhilarating, so bear with me. I'm still blown away by it. I don't want to make this too dramatic. Okay, so we were talking and she asked me a question about herself, and she pretty much, I forgot how exactly it went with what was said that started this, but I remember asking, so she asked me a question for herself, and it was escaping me, so I was like, God, please give me the answer. And that was the first time I actually called out and was like, God, help me on something for a long time. I grew up Christian, but I've learned that there's a lot of different truths that are blended with a lot of different religions, and they all fit under an umbrella that is not discussed, and it's usually just a divide instead of everyone bringing it together, because each story usually has the same sentiment to it but different names attached to it, and there's a general idea of the grand design, but it is not usually gone into depths for. Well, first and foremost, let me just say that God, divine spirit, infinite consciousness, higher consciousness, divine light, divine wisdom, source, all of these names represent the same grandiose being that is of infinite consciousness, which is God. So, and let me just express that although God is everything and everywhere, God does sometimes confine its vastness into a specific place, time, or period, or vessel when God needs to relay a message or project any type of anything that God is trying to project. For the sake of just simplicity, even though God is not simplistic at all, for the sake of simplicity, I will be using the term God, but whatever term that you feel comfortable with using, think of it as in the same way. So we were in the kitchen, we were talking, my sister asked me a question, and she I was stumbling because the thought that came to me left me. So I was like, God, please give me the words. And then so she was teasing me a little bit. She was like, oh, that's the first time you called out God. Look at that. And I was like, yeah, I know. So then she starts praying and she starts speaking in tongues because that's one of her gifts. To speak in tongues is when you are speaking a language that is not of what the English language can comprehend, but it is a spiritual language where you are either speaking to ancestors, angels, or speaking to divine spirit. So she starts speaking in tongues and she gets down on her knees. And usually, I have a stubborn nature to me sometimes where I won't do that. I won't get on my knees and pray. I'll just pray out loud as if I'm speaking directly into the mist of the air or consciousness. Or sometimes I will just, pretty much just meditate or say an affirmation. That's usually what I do. So because of the different truths that I've learned throughout the years, it had pulled me away from religion. And so this is not what I'm expressing right now. This is spirituality that I'm about to go into that I feel like is masked by religion. So I pretty much felt God around that moment when she was speaking in tongues and on her knees praying. And I still did not get down on my knees to surrender. And I still felt like because I felt God in the room, which was profound already, I didn't have to. And then I felt God's essence flow through me, which we all have God's essence in us and within us, where source energy holds our consciousness and our awareness. We are made in the same image. Now I'm going to go into the image part. So in this moment of feeling, God within me, I felt like, well, since God is within me, I don't have to bow. Immediately when I thought that, my sister reached her hand out and was like, God wants you to bow. And so I felt the conviction already, but ignoring it, and it's so funny because that's what we do. We're like, no, I don't have to do that. I know what I felt, but I'm just going to not do that. When she said it to me, I was like, okay, fine, God, okay, I hear you. I get down on my knees with her, and we're praying together. And my hands are, face palm down, palm downward on the floor. And I'm like, I'm crouched down and I start to feel my body literally as if something is moving through my body. And it was like there was still a safe feeling, but it was like release and surrender. And because I had finally surrendered in the physical sense, I was about to receive a massive healing that I didn't realize was about to happen. So as I'm surrendering and I'm allowing my body to do its movements and everything that was going on in that moment, I started to visualize. And I'm not even going to use the word visualize because sometimes visualization is you actively trying to call forth that image to you. This image literally just came to me. So this was like a premonition or a inside scoop, like window view of what was going on inside of here, inside of all this. And I pretty much I saw Vaughn, which is a male alter of mine, start moving and walking towards something. And I saw myself in that moment of what he was walking towards, and it was me, but in the representation of a it was like a tornado volcano, like conjunction. And Vaughn goes into it, and then Kimura goes into it, and then Ty goes into it. These are all altars. And then Eden goes into it, Finley goes into it, 11 goes into it. These were the remaining 6 that did not integrate yet with the previous 5. Then, just when I thought that it was done there, I come out of that, imagery moment, and I explain to my sister what just happened, and she starts praying even more, because she realizes at this moment what's going on. Mind you, 6 months ago, I came here, and my sister and I moved together, and that was the start of this healing journey, of me being in a place where I can be for a long period of time to myself, in solitude, a lot of time to myself since I work from home, and a lot of self-reflecting, a lot of meditating, a lot of reading and researching, and real serious inner work. And so because of that, she kept saying, by April, you're going to be healed. By April, you're going to be healed. And I was like, no, I can't imagine that. Like, I can't imagine it being that soon. She was right. So as I tell her this volcano tornado imagery that I saw, as she's praying, I then like start crying because I can't imagine, like, wow, is this really happening? Did this really just happen? And it wasn't even done. As I'm crying, she starts to hold me, and as she holds me, I just go. I leave my body, and I just like, it's like I just like fell out into her arms. I then start to immediately feel myself traveling somewhere, and I'm still looking down. It's like a remote view of seeing myself in her arms. So at this point, this is like an out-of-body experience, and an out-of-body experience is when your spirit leaves the vessel, because this fleshly skin is a vessel that our soul is inside of. And so my soul left the vessel, and I'm looking down remotely at her holding me, and it was profound. And I was like, am I really here? Am I really where I think I am? And the reason why I asked that is because I immediately saw a throne before me, and at first I could not make out what was in the center of the throne until I really focused and realized that it was God. And I kid you not, people, or some people, have a preconceived notion that God is either, white, or a man, or Jesus was a white man, or if God is not that, then God is just vast consciousness and infinite space, which God is all and everything. And God presents themselves, and you're gonna understand why I say them in a few minutes, but God presents themselves differently to the person that they need to help and heal at that moment for resonance. Because unfortunately, a lot of people do not feel comfortable with what doesn't look like them, and that makes complete sense. But God is not just one thing. What I experienced in this space was looking up, and it was literally fire surrounding this being of all different colors. When I say all colors that are not even created here or here, period, all different colors. There was also, the being was a man, and it's like divine light that blinds you, that you can barely even look at for too long, and you kind of have to like glance and look away. And it was a man with a morphing of a woman there, and the morphing of beast. The Trinity that people think is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is actually man, woman, and beast. And that is what I met and what I experienced, seeing the man, woman, and beast morphing into each other in a constant motion with a calm sense to it, with such a beauty that is unfathomable, but also scary. And you have no choice but to give it honor and respect, and just be as, there is no room for anything but pure humbleness in the presence of God. With that sight can, like, you're struck by the beauty, but you're also frozen in fear. But the fear is like respect. It's not a fear of you're about to be harmed. And it is, I'm getting chills again talking about it. It's profound, and I'm so honored to have experienced this. And then it gets better. Just a little correction there. The J in the alphabet was not even created until after the 1600s. So although a lot of people are calling the name Jesus, the name is actually Yeshua, which is Yeshua. Also, wanted to mention that it was a beautiful, profound sight to see the highest level of angels in status surrounding the throne of God, which are the cherubims, the seraphims, and the ophanims. And the ophanims are the thrones and wheels, and the cherubim and the seraphim are the two higher level before you get to the ophanim, and they all surround God's throne. And perhaps in another video I will discuss the different wonders of the angels and the different wonders of even the beginning of what Genesis would like to talk about. I'm very excited to express that part, but that's not for this video. So moving on. Then it gets even better. Then I start seeing all of the altars standing behind me. After I processed what I was really seeing, all of the altars are behind me. The remaining 6 that had just went into this tornado before I got up there. And because the 5 had already integrated, the previous 5 had already integrated, they were already within me, but I felt them. It was like I felt their presence again. Then Vaughn steps inside of my vessel, which is when I realized that the first 6 were a part of me, which is Jewel, Julie, Jaja, Juju, and myself, Juliana. Then, including Vaughn, so that makes the 6. Then the rest of them start leaving in different directions outside of me. They do not step in, they go elsewhere. Ty goes towards the left. Kimora, which was a divine light, so Ty was the son of Kimora, who is non-binary but was in a male body. And Kimora, being the mom, was always a divine light being with long white hair that would stay in the ether in our internal world. Kimora stepped inside of God as a light being. Then Finley steps out of a room towards the back that's behind where I'm standing, and Eden follows her. Now mind you, when I saw the imagery of everyone going inside of the volcano, Eden was the last one, volcano, tornado. But Eden was the last one that did not want to leave at all, to the point that a being had to come in and chop her up. That may sound gruesome, but it made me realize that her intention at the time was not for the best interest. Now, fast forward back to where I was. Eden and Finley leave out behind me, and they go into this room elsewhere, and at this point everyone had dispersed. That was the remaining 5 that had to disperse. Then 11 comes in with a black hoodie on. Mind you, she's the altar that never expressed who she was. She never gave her information to us, and she was pretty much a mystery. She comes in and removes her hood, looks up at God, and says, "My work is done." This whole time, she was a mystery link of bringing us to God and bringing forth the pathway towards the healing. It was like she was on mission for that specifically, which is why she never wanted to disclose who she was. And to me, that is so amazing how the intricacies of all of this works. There's never just one layer or one side to things, and everyone's experience is always different. Now, after that was done, she removes her hood. God seemed happy and smiled, and the faces that were still morphing, and the being was still morphing, and the flames, got even brighter, as if it was like a motion of excitement. And it was no speaking via the mouth. It was all telepathic communication, and it was all like thought consciousness was transferred back and forth between the being that was God and is God to myself, and even 11 when 11 spoke. Now, once 11 left the room, the walls turned into screens, and I saw I'm not going to say what I saw on the screens, but I am going to say that I saw 2 things that I needed to release so that way I can feel like I can move forward. And I saw 2 things that really gave me such bliss to see that God was trying to show me that it was done. After that, I was there and was spoken to, and came back not remembering what was exactly said after all of that between us, but I do remember what I saw. And when I came back in my body like, it was like literally like jolted back inside. And my sister had knew that I went somewhere, and I told her the story, and it was like I was honored to remember it, because clearly God wanted me to remember, so that way I can relay this message to people. I sat with that, and I was crying and praying and surrendering even more, and a lot of secrets of the kingdom, the heavens, and the universes, plural, of all of this, started to come forth via God speaking. And it was so beautiful and so honoring. And I'm still humbled to say this, that I don't know all of what goes on in every detail and everything. And being enlightened is knowing that you do not know everything. And I'm saying I do not know everything. But what I was shared and what I do know is enough for me to feel like if I'm never told anything else, I'm so good. And I know that I'm meant to share this. I'm meant to express this. And what was shown is that there's God, the male version. There's Goddess, the woman. And then there's Beast. And Beast is all of the intricacies of what people would deem dark, all combined into a being. And when the trinity of them come together, that is the totality of God. Now, darkness and light are different sides of the same coin for a similar purpose. And a lot of people look at them as, oh, one is good and one is bad. There is no good and bad. It is all for the greater purpose of God's divine light and God's divine word. However, people do choose sides, and there are bad intentions and evil intentions and all of those things that happen, which is a little bit of what I talked about previously in my last video. But now with this awareness that I have now, I'm not saying that it's all still good even when it's dark. It's not necessarily all still good when it's dark, but a lot of it is. And when it is dark and way too chaotic and way too evil, that is for a reason. So even though it's very uncomfortable, there's still a reason for all of it, is what I'm trying to say. So I've always wanted to mention the time that I did ancient medicinal ceremonies, which was about 2 years ago, and I was feeling around that time that it wasn't time to express what it was like to go to the 8th dimension during that ceremony. However, I feel like the time is now, considering what I just endured with meeting God, that was only the first. I feel like it was a test to see how I was going to treat that experience and what more can I handle. And that is exactly what we always all go through, our tests in life. And I just have to get closer for this one. God's tests have always been presented in many different ways, and I recognize that the test of going to the 8th dimension and how I treated that experience afterwards, and the sacredity, is that a word? No. The sacredity? The sacredness of what I treated that experience like, and waiting to even tell even a snippet of that, I've realized that there was trust there. And I'm honored and excited. I am glad that when I went to the 8th dimension, okay, let me just express really fast that as soon as I fell out, okay, in this ancient medicinal ceremony, I did bufo and I did gambo. And those are 2 frog ancient medicines, where one is the frog and one is the toad. And we did the gambo in the river, and then we did the bufo on the land in like where the grass and everything was. Once I did the bufo is when I went to the 8th dimension, and I immediately broke into trillions and trillions of particles of separational consciousness. Felt my whole soul like disperse. I immediately started to see all these colors and amazing spectrums of colors that are not here on this planet. And I heard a static sound, which is the sound of Earth and the sound of the universe. I then was traveling fast, first descended into the core and then ascended into the dimensions, past dimensions. Didn't see what was on the way, but once I got there, I saw a bunch of different geometric shapes and colors, and it was an amazing, it was like there's no way to put it into words, the imagery that was there, because it was not solid and it was not simple. It was intricate and it was vast and it was energy and it was amazing. There was no communication in regular forms of words of mouth. It was telepathic communication, and it was forms of globs of energy moving. And it was one of those things where I recognized that that was a piece of what I was going to experience now with this story. By the way, when I came back from that, it took me about 30 minutes to use my voice, to learn how to speak again, and to use my body, since these bodies and these voices are so limited to what we really can do. With the different secrets that have been shared, and I will be expressing a bit of them, almost everything that's been shared to me I can share, but there's some that it's not time yet, and so as time goes on, I will be sharing more and more in these videos that are coming up, which has been put in the forefront of the other topics that I've had for months now that I've been wanting to talk about. But with everything, with every new step that is taken closer towards my purpose, a lot of things get like thrown in the flow of it, and I'm excited about it, and I'm going with the flow of it, and it's okay. So I had to take a few weeks to literally process what it felt like to be whole again, what it felt like not to have the voices of the alters in my head, what it felt like to have my own thoughts and not thoughts of all of them with different things. It took a while for me to recognize what I even like, who I am. A lot of people, when they fuse, if they fuse, a lot of systems do not choose to fuse, or do not want to fuse, or cannot fuse, or feel like it's not for them. That is to each their own. I never thought that it would happen, and I never thought that it was going to be even a possibility as soon as it did. Now, I do know that it takes you a while to recognize who you are when you are this new version of self all fused together, and a lot of people like to see what name resonates with them with that, and Juliana, which is core original self of me, is what resonated. To go back to my original name, even though it was me before 1 year old, and then by 1 year old, alters were present, or one was present, and then they kept forming, but it was still an original self that I wanted to get back to and honor, instead of having a whole new name just because I am a new fused, being. So that is what I am going by, and that is what I went by. Now, this has been so amazing because you have to be very careful with your healing, because even when you heal, you're not done putting the work in. It is not just, I'm healed, everything's cool, and you don't have to worry about anything. That is when you have to kick it into overdrive, your inner work, to make sure you stay healed. You have to make sure that the people that you are around are supportive and do not try to do things or say things or be a certain influence to you to go backwards in what your healing has brought you to. And sometimes when that happens, it's also for a greater reason. And that is what part 2 will be about. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next one that is coming very, very soon. And if you enjoyed, and if you would like to see more videos of me speaking about mental health and spiritual awareness and awakening, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Please hit the notification bell to keep up to date on when I post. And I hope you have a beautiful, magical week. If you have any questions about anything, or if you would like to express what you feel about this particular video, I am very curious. Please comment below. If you have nothing to say, I overstand. Trust me. Until next time.